All right, so getting started. I gotta transition my brain from the last group and assume everybody's on square one. Okay, so beginning biblical Hebrew. So before we begin, let's kind of set our expectations. Um, these first 7 weeks are going to be a very slow and thorough approach of learning the alphabet inside and out. You're going to have a mastery of it by the time we're done with these 7 weeks. As we do get into vocabulary and grammar, it's more of a marathon rather than a sprint. If any of you have learned a new language, like for example in the mission, it's a common thing to ask a missionary, like, so when did you actually start understanding what everybody was saying around you, or when did you start feeling comfortable speaking? You know, that comes in time. It's not just going to be right off the bat. After a good solid year of studying Hebrew, you're going to be able to pick up a text and sight read it, be able to sound it out, be able to translate some basic things. The advanced poetry of Psalms or Isaiah is going to be a little tricky. You're going to have a reader's edition of a Hebrew Bible to fully get all of the words. There is so much complexity and nuance with the Hebrew language that it definitely is a marathon rather than a sprint. But this year, this 7-week intro and further on into the rest of the year is going to be a huge jumpstart into your journey in connecting with the language. So setting our expectations, there on the homework, there's a whole video from the Case family that help set that expectation, what you will be able to do by watching these videos and participating in this kind of a group setting. So just a couple bullet points of inviting others. Make sure to invite anyone that might be interested. Many of us come from a background in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but there are quite a few that are not as well. Many of our guest speakers and things throughout the course will be from rabbinic backgrounds and Jewish traditions. And so make sure that we keep our vocabulary inclusive and know that we're not just speaking in a Sunday school type setting. And yeah, the pace is, it's going to be, to me, almost painfully slow for the first 7 weeks, and then it'll really pick up. But again, with learning the language, that first initial breaking in period needs to kind of be a little bit slower. But for these first 7 weeks, this is going to be kind of the format of each class. We're going to spend 30 minutes reviewing and practicing the previous week's material, 30 minutes of introducing new material, and then 30 minutes of kind of going through the homework together for the next week. As we do transition out of the initial 7 weeks, we're going to lengthen that hour and a half into 2 hours as we bring in guest speakers that so that both the early group and the late group can attend together. We are going to overlap it so that the guest speaker comes at 7 o'clock, and so that both groups can attend that. And yeah, that's just kind of what to expect. An hour and a half for now, and it'll eventually in March move into a 2-hour block starting at 7 and going till 9. But again, all of these things are recorded. If you can't make it on time, totally understandable, and we'll try to accommodate the best we can. So 3 dates to make sure to mark your calendars for this next year. We are going to, kind of during our guest speaker time, we're going to celebrate the Moedim, the appointed times or the feasts of the Lord. We're going to celebrate these 3 this year. The Passover Seder we're going to have on April 6th. Shavuot is going to be led by Linda Cherry on May 25th, and the Fall Feast on September 14th. And so we're going to have class just like normal before and after, but during our kind of guest speaker time, those are ones that are, if you've never participated in a Seder dinner before or anything like that, you're going to want to make sure to attend those, and they'll be recorded. You can always catch them later as well. So I so don't want to overwhelm people with a ton of costs and like a kindergarten supply list that you're going to max out your budget at Walmart on. But here are some optional supplies that may be purchased throughout our year. I will introduce them and my recommended purchases as they become relevant in the class. Like, you don't need a reader's Bible until we're a good couple months in, or even then. Yeah, I mean, you might be able to hold off on that for quite a while. But I've already introduced you to some of the workbooks that I recommend. Most of the stuff I'll have is slides and things. I totally understand that price may be an issue for many. So I'm going to try to create my own curriculum as I'm learning Hebrew right alongside you, so that we can create free and accessible versions of this as well. But one thing I do highly recommend is flashcards. So if you just want to take a simple piece of paper and cut it up and use those as flashcards, that's great. If you want to purchase some flashcards, but I think that the manual dexterity of writing these characters on flashcards and being able to flip through them and quiz yourself and everything is highly useful in learning a new language. A reader's Bible, like I said, if you're in this for the long haul and really wanting to dive into things, I'll share recommendations on that at a future time. Lexicons and concordances are going to be very handy down the road, as well as when we do dive into the Aleph with Beth videos, everything's free. But if you do want to print out some of their materials, like, it's all free in a Google Doc format, but if you want to print it out, there would be some cost with printing and binding there. But yeah, all of these things are optional. If you don't want any of these things, it's not going to put you super behind or anything like that. So let's see. Sorry, my chat button just popped up. So yes, the Israel 365 Bible would definitely work for that. We'll share quite a few different free resources and apps and things like that as they become relevant in our study, so that we go through those. But for now, the lexicon that I recommend is the Brown Driver Briggs, and no relation, I don't think, but the concordance. I don't know. I kind of work off of two different ones. I really like Strong's Concordance, but I get that, it's not the most scholarly thing either. Lots of debate on that. I really like Liddell. It takes all of the Iliad and Odyssey and other Greek texts and kind of supplants that in with it. But yeah, as we really get into that, I will start posting links and which ones are highly recommended, etc. But yeah. So again, don't get overwhelmed with the supply list. I'll mention those as they become relevant. Tonight, we're going to be showing my recommendations for flashcards and calligraphy pens, if you would like to start getting involved in those. All right, so any questions or comments? Have I thoroughly overwhelmed you at this point? Anything before we actually dive into our first lesson with Hebrew tonight? All right, then. So tonight, we are going to learn the fundamentals of distinguishing, well, not distinguishing, but just like the new set of differences between Hebrew and English. We're going to learn our first three consonants and our first two vowels. We're going to learn to read and write and pronounce and combine and do all of that with these 5 letters. So here's kind of some background to kind of show what we're using and why we're using it the way we are. So just like English, Hebrew has 3 basic distinct pronunciation styles. Like we have UK pronunciation, we have Australia pronunciation, Intermountain West has its own dialect and everything, right? So Hebrew is no different, especially since it's been around much longer. So the 3 different pronunciation styles are Ashkenazic, Sephardic, and Temani. we are going to be focusing on the Sephardic. If you notice on your yellow workbook, on the back, it says that it is a Sephardic pronunciation. And all of the Aleph with Beth videos that we'll be using down the road are also Sephardic. In the homework section of Learning Zion, there is a really great article that they've written on why we would use Sephardic to use for ancient Hebrew versus the other two. But that's for, if you're interested, that's not going to be required or on a quiz or anything. But if anybody asks you what pronunciation, why you're pronouncing things so weird, it's not going to be like we can learn Sephardic and then go over to Israel and be able to be conversant with people. The modern Hebrew is a mix of all three of those in very nuanced ways. So Sephardic is very biblical Hebrew, ancient texts kind of a thing. All right, again, like English, we have different writing styles here in the Hebrew. With English, we have a type, we have cursive, we have, you look in the old Geneva Bible and there's glyphs and different ways to write F's and S's and things. Likewise in Hebrew, we have a Masoretic block, which we will be using in this study group. There's a modern cursive, which we are just going to pass right on over. That's a different class for a different day. And once we get past the 7-week intro, we'll start diving into ancient pictograms and some of the symbolism and gematria behind those. But mostly that Masoretic block is what we're going to be using here. So taking a look, here is the Isaiah scroll. I believe this is chapter 53. And we're starting to notice some major differences from English. There's no punctuation, right? I don't see any periods, commas, exclamation points, or question marks. Not that we know this yet, but there's no vowels. This is just a page full of consonants. There's no capital case or lowercase. It's just all one case, and we're reading right to left. So you would think that this would be easier. Oh, I don't have to worry about punctuation? Great. I don't have to worry about vowels? Yes, those are obnoxious and get in the way anyway, right? But let's look at an English N. If we don't have any vowels, what are all of the possibilities that this word could be? So feel free to post it in chat or unmute yourself and talk. What are some of the different words that this N could represent? So A-N, an.
On, in.
New.
Yeah. Even some three ones like uno or Anna. There's lots of different variations, right? If
How
we
about nummy?
Yep. So
Uno.
yep. And what about this one? This one's a little bit more complicated.
Hot, height.
The.
Yeah. The, thy, oath. Like there's many different words that could be. So let's take a look at one of the most famous scriptures in all of the Bible. What scripture is this? We're reading right to left. There's no vowels, no cases, no punctuation.
Oh.
Here we have.
In the beginning,
God.
God created the heaven and
Earth.
the earth.
Was without form and
Without
void.
form.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Reading it in that way. So this is how the ancient texts would have read. And so a group started deciding that the oral tradition was getting lost over time. People weren't being able to pronounce the words that were in the scrolls. And so they started what is now known as the Nikud. They started writing the vowels and how to vocalize the sounds, putting dots and dashes and things underneath the letters. They would write cantillations above that would help you to sing the psalms and the different ones that are meant to be sung. We're not going to go full on into cantillations in this year anyway, but we are going to be heavily focusing on the Nikud. to learn the vowels. So the next kind of focus point of difference here is the case and the punctuation. So if we have Genesis 1:1 that doesn't have punctuation, why doesn't it have punctuation? So my opinion is that case and punctuation and sentence structure is purposely left out. That I believe the Lord wants us to experiment with the text, and that if we put a period here, it's valid. And it's one paradigm of looking at that verse. If we put a period here, that's also valid, and another way to look at the same scripture with new eyes. I believe that Hebrew, I mean, this is my own opinion. So, I mean, if it's totally wrong, I'll totally accept it and own up to it. But I believe that God wants us to experiment with case and punctuation. You know, if you take a look, Nathan Richardson has a great resource on formatting the Book of Mormon without punctuation. And it brings on a whole new set of ideas and perspectives as you're reading the text and putting it where the Spirit tells you or leads you to put it. I think that everything is valid when we start experimenting with the text. And so diving into the next nuance, that the vowels are located below the text. So that they didn't have to rewrite all of the scrolls, they were working with the consonants that were already there and putting the vowels underneath for the most part. We'll learn a few exceptions later on, but for the most part, they're writing the vowels underneath so that they didn't have to rewrite all of the scrolls. So for example, the word banana would be read like this. We're going to dive in and make it more complicated here in a second, but the word love or the word Hebrew, not all consonants have to have a vowel underneath them, but when it does, it's located underneath the consonant that it follows. So we read top to bottom. And we also got to remember that we're reading right to left. So the word banana is going to be something like this: love and Hebrew. But now if we combine the two, now we're seeing banana in a whole different way. We're looking at this from a totally different mirror. We're looking at the word love and Hebrew different. But what's more than that, like what we've already introduced, the vowels are represented by shapes. So the word banana would actually be written something like this, and the word Hebrew, something like this. So any questions or comments up to this point before we dive in and start learning some of our letters?
So, wow.
It's a whole new ballgame, right? Learning a new language.
That's pretty awesome. That's all I got to say at this point.
Yep. So let's dive in and learn our first three letters and our first three consonants and our first two vowels. So we have bet, shin, and tav. So just like in English, our letters have names. So like W isn't pronounced W, it's pronounced but we call it a W. So these three letters this is the name of them, but that's not how they're pronounced. This is bet, shin, and tav. Bet, I've tried to use alliteration here to kind of help cement it in. It looks like a ball in a box. If you have the blue Hebrew book that I had for the recommended reading, this is a very good kind of more kindergarten way to look and memorize the different letters. And you'll see I've copied some from theirs. But bet looks like a ball in a box. Shin looks like a shiny skewer with a dot on the right. And tav looks like tall legs with a left toe. Bet is pronounced b as in ball. Shin is pronounced sh as in shock. Tav is pronounced t as in tape. And for our first two vowels, we have patach and kamatz. So one really interesting thing with Hebrew vowels is they have two different ways to write any given sound. So both the patach and the kamatz sound exactly the same. Patach is pronounced ah as in ball, and kamatz is also pronounced ah as in ball. The patach looks like a horizontal line. It's always going to look like that. The kamatz looks like a T, but sometimes in certain fonts, and if you're writing it with calligraphy pens, sometimes it can have that little ball down below. So let's dive in. Oh, actually, before we move on, Eldon posted, so please post a link for the books. Yes, I will go ahead and post all of those beginning books there on Learning Zion with our homework and everything. Just to reiterate from before, that all of these are optional. I highly recommend them, but they are optional. I'll have most of the stuff in our slides and things, but there's additional homework exercises in the books that are going to be super helpful, especially if you get stuck on a certain lesson or anything. But I'll post those links there on Learning Zion for sure. So let's practice with our first consonant and our first two vowels, I guess. So patach and kamatz are interchangeable at this point. So if one's there versus the other, it's still pronounced the same way. So if we are reading this, we would read it as b, ba, 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 b, ba, 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 ba. And if we're doing the same but with shin, we're going to read it as sh, sha, sh, sha, 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 sha. And now with tav, t, ta, t, ta, t, ta, 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 t, ta. Hopefully that makes sense. We'll get some more practice here as we go along and start combining some of these. So, you know, if you're muted or unmuted, if you want to practice these and start kind of sounding these out, what do these sound like? The first one would be sh. The second one, because it has a patah underneath it, would be sha. Now let's put two letters or two consonants side by side in the same word. This one would be sha sha. This one, only one of them has a vowel underneath it. So this one would be shab. This one, it has a vowel under both. So this one would be shata. This one would be shaba. And again, I have all of these slides and things in the homework page so that you can review these. So let's pronounce these ones in practice. That first one, take a second and try to sound that one out. So we have sha, ba, t. And if we combine those all, Shabbat, which is the word for Sabbath, Shabbat. The next one, bat. And this one, I didn't realize I had a duplicate here, but this one's also Shabbat. And this one, babat. This one, tashab. And this one, tabash. All right, so we're going to start practicing on our writing of these. How do we write these so that we can make flashcards, or how do we practice with these? There's two different ways that we can do that at this point. If you happen to have calligraphy pens, by all means, I'll share my recommendations for calligraphy pens here in a second. But we're going to start practicing with a ballpoint pen And if you would like to, you can start practicing with calligraphy pens on all of these writing styles. So let's take a look at, just a second, I was gonna share my other screen. So like on Amazon, for example, some of the calligraphy pens. So I purchased these ones and they are trash. Don't buy these. So anything that has just a whole bunch of different kinds of tips and things, I mean, they work good, they write good, but they have like basically zero ink in them. They're just a novelty. So any of these I wouldn't recommend getting, but let me pull up these ones that I've ordered. They got back ordered and everything with the holidays, so I don't have them yet. I will be showing them next week as I have an opportunity to play around with them. But these ones all had really great reviews and lots of ink so that we can really practice with them. So when we are looking at the nibs, the common sizes are 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter, and 3 millimeter. 1 millimeter is going to be for more of like your college ruled paper. For wide ruled paper, a 2 millimeter nib would be great. And for like flashcards or, you know, a little bit bigger block, a 3 millimeter nib would be more conducive for that. So this set seems to be pretty good. Again, I'll let you know next week as well as this one. And then there's like a set like this that have metal tips and ink cartridges that you can swap out and use these more in an old-fashioned way without like an inkwell and trying to deal with that kind of a mess. So anyway, I'll have examples of all of those next week as I get to play around with those and get my hands on them. But let's dive in and start looking at how we write these letters. So with a ballpoint pen, you know, it's going to be a little bit different than what you're going to be seeing on your screen as far as a Masoretic block. But generally, as we are teaching it in more of kind of a kindergarten format, you can write these however you want to, but this is generally how they're written. We go from right to left and top to bottom, just kind of how we read in Hebrew. So we make the top line and then the side line, and then we make sure that the left edges of bet line up, but that the bottom base extends out to the right. And then we put a ball in it. With Sheen, we start making the W, or I guess I shouldn't say W. I mean, it kind of looks like a W, right? But we start forming the outside base, and then we put that middle leg in and put the dot on the right of that. So with Sheen, you got to make sure that the line doesn't come out from the very crook of the neck right here, that it comes out, but it's not in the middle. It's very off-centered and somewhat particular. And then with Tav, it's a fairly simple one. We create the top line and the side line. When we create the second vertical line that's parallel with the first, we want to make sure that it has just a little bit of that tip sticking out of it. As we see in the calligraphy part, it has that like little copette, the little like faux hawk kind of looking thing there. And make sure to kick that toe out on the left-hand side for the Tav. And then likewise, if you have a calligraphy nib, then there's some differences, you know, with calligraphy that you're going to get used to, but here's how you would write any of those. Now with the patah and the kamatz, the patah is just a simple horizontal line underneath the letter. The kamatz is a T. With calligraphy, a lot of times they add that little dot at the bottom of the little T there to kind of stylize it. So that brings us to the first homework assignment. So we're going to start creating flashcards and practice writing and pronunciation until you can feel comfortable with both. So let's dive into how we create those flashcards and how we're going to do this. So here are our first set of flashcards, and these slides are going to be on that Learning Zion, so that you don't have to hurry and write them all down before I move to the next slide. But you're going to create 3 of each of these flashcards. The top line is the front of the flashcard, and the bottom line is the back of the flashcard. So you're going to create 3 of each of those. And let me pop over again to Amazon. When I type in flashcards, it pops up for me like right away, but could be for anything. But anyway, I purchased these flashcards because they're already pre-punched, and so I don't have to go through all of that work, and they're color coded. But again, whatever works for you, that's just the purchase that I made. I found that it was very helpful as I was making flashcards. So I've made 2 piles. I've color coded them. So all of my consonants are one color and all of my vowels are another color. You don't have to color code them, but you do want to make 3 of each of those ones that were on that slide and separate them into consonants versus vowels. And then what you're going to do is so you're going to shuffle the 2 piles, and then you're going to draw a consonant card. And whatever that consonant is, you're going to write that on your piece of paper. And then next you're going to draw a vowel and write it underneath that consonant. And then you're going to repeat that for however big of a word you want to write, whether it's a 1, 2, or 3 consonant word. And repeat that until you have a good 12 or so words on your page. And then practice pronouncing each of those words that you've created until you can feel comfortable that any combination that you pull out, that you can write it and pronounce it. Hopefully that makes sense. So that's homework number 1. Homework number 2 is to complete the worksheet, which I'll go through all of these individually here, and then watch the quiz. And the 4th one, since we don't have a whole lot of time together, introduce yourself either on Facebook or Learning Zion. Tell us where you're from, what you like to do, and so that we can kind of get to know each other there. You know, throughout the weeks, many of us already know each other to some degree, but many of us don't. And so please introduce yourself either on Facebook or Learning Zion if you feel so inclined, and so we can all get to know each other better. But any questions up to that point before I go in and show the worksheet and the quiz and all of that? How are you feeling with Hebrew, with our first consonants and vowels so far?
I want to know on that last slide what the little N was.
The little N. Oh, like the Aleph? Just a second. Like homework this?
Yeah, what is that?
So that is like the Hebrew equivalent of the letter A. So so all of the homeworks go in order. So we'll learn this letter next week. But yeah, so this is basically saying homework number 1.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Thank you.
Yep.
Also, I asked a question in the chat.
Oh, sorry. I don't know. I didn't see that. But yeah, I can post all of those links and things in there. But yeah, don't get overwhelmed if it seems like there's a lot to purchase and different things. You can do everything with just things that you've got on hand. But I'll post all of those links and things if you'd like to purchase those. Same ones that I've got. But anyway, with that, let's dive into the.
With the books, can you put them in order of which books would be the prioritize the books of what would be the most important for a beginner, very beginner?
Yeah, for sure.
What would be the best ones to get at the beginning if you don't have a lot of money?
Yeah, for sure. So when I first recommended these books to start off with, they're both really great. I'm basically pulling all of my slides and things out of this yellow book. So if you don't have the resources to invest, you can just use my slides. There's extra homework in these books that are helpful. This blue one is let me open up to a good one. So like, for example, This one goes through the letter but, and it shows the ball in the box. And so, I mean, it's it's more of kind of like a kindergarten type of level of learning the Hebrew letters and how to write them and remember them, kind of a thing. It's a very handy book if that is what you're wanting. But
Okay.
that one's more on the recommended side. It's not super necessary, but if you need it, then that's the one I would recommend for that level.
Did you
Thank
take
you.
it to a printer and spiral bind it? Or do you have your own spiral
Yeah.
thingy?
Yep, I've got my own spiral binder.
Yeah, okay.
I bind all my books.
'Cause mine is not.
Also, I wanted to recommend, I often look at the books on second sale,
I'm
Mhm.
looking at
aid
one in
books
Hebrew.
and thrift books.
Mhm.
And compare the prices with Amazon because they're not always
Yeah.
cheaper, but most of the time they are.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I need to know that.
Yeah. And if money really is a big issue, I have scanned this one in so I could give you the PDF version, but I typically don't like to, go purchase the book, even if it's secondhand or whatever. But if money is an issue, let me know and I can get you a copy one way or another. So let's dive into the worksheet and how to access it, etc. So on screen share, forgot I wasn't showing my screen. So on Learning Zion. So once you log in, and you can either click on the Hebrew over here or the Hebrew here on the main screen, click on it, navigate to the week that we're in. We're going to be looking at week number 1. And here is a 4-page worksheet. Everything's optional. It's just how much time and effort it takes to get familiar and comfortable with the words. If you're killing it and just doing really excellent, you don't have to do all of the different words. It's not like I'm going to take a grade or attendance or anything like that. But if you're struggling to match and pronounce these words and things, and I highly recommend going through all of them and making sure that you got a good grasp on them. So let's take a look and start practicing together. So each week we're going to actually do some of the homework exercises together and then kind of turn you loose for the rest of the week. And then when you have questions, we can answer those the next week on the homework itself. But yeah, where's the hand at? Oh, L, there you go.
Yeah, are those real words or just practice, like vocabulary, just practicing? They're
Yeah,
not,
I mean, there's a couple, like 2 out of the 70 or whatever that
okay,
are actual words.
they're not real words. Most of them are not. Okay, they're just practice. That's what I wondered. Okay,
I think it's either week 2 or 3 that from that point on, it's only real words so that we're not
okay.
getting confused and
And you'll
just-
let us know when that happens. Okay.
Yep.
Because
I
I thought, I
actually
don't
think
want to
it's-
memorize these if these aren't, just pronunciation. I don't have to like memorize them because they're real words. Okay.
Yeah. Don't memorize for this week. We're just
Okay,
working with
awesome.
sounds.
Okay, great. Thank
And
you.
another thing to note with all of these is that you might be able to actually pronounce them a couple different ways depending on where you put the stress. Like with English or Spanish is the one I speak, right? So when you have an accent above any given syllable, that's where the stress goes, right? For now, don't worry about where the stress goes. We'll learn that nuance a little bit later on. But as we'll see here with the exercise that we're doing in the workbook here, I'll point that out as we get to it. So if we take a look, just a second. Okay, so this exercise on the right, we're going to start working with it on the left. So exercise 1 is about taking English words or sounds and turning them into Hebrew. And so for this exercise, the instructions say, assume that all of the A's are pronounced ah, as in ball, like the patach and the kamatz that we learned today, right? So for example, number 18 is not going to be pronounced bash because we haven't learned that sound yet. But assume that all of the A's in this are pronounced ah. So let's start off with number 1. Let me turn on my Hebrew keyboard. All right, so this one, we would write it with a sheen. Number 2 has a vowel sound introduced to it. So we're going to start off with a sheen, which is pronounced sh, and we're going to add either a patah or a kamatz underneath it to give it that ah sound. For number 3.
Wait, Cameron,
Uh-huh.
can I interrupt you real quickly?
Yeah.
How did you change your keyboard to Hebrew?
So let me just do the long version. I was going to do the short version, but okay. So I have been working with Aleph with Beth to create a special keyboard just for our 2 programs. And so I will be introducing how to install that and get it working next week. But for, like, you can see my whole screen, right? Generally, up here, your keyboard would look like this little A symbol on a Mac. On a PC, it's going to be in the lower right-hand corner. But you would just switch your different keys. On your keyboard, you hit the function button for a Mac. I'm not as versed on my keyboard with a PC, but there's another button that you can easily toggle between your 2 different keyboards or however many you want. But we're going to be using Keyman if you want to. I mean, it's all optional. But if you would like to install a new keyboard on a Mac, you would open up your keyboard settings and you click the plus button, search for Hebrew, and add that one to your mix. But that QWERTY Hebrew keyboard is a little confusing and not as intuitive for an English speaker. So we've developed one that the English sound is likewise on the keyboard in the right place where you would think it would be, kind of a thing. So anyway.
Like the S on our keyboard would be the sheen. Is that what you're saying?
No, yes, the concept is true, but there's 3 different consonants in Hebrew that have that S sound. So one of them, yes, is located where the S on the English keyboard is, but sheen is actually in a different place.
Okay, so I don't want to interrupt the homework because so you'll introduce that to us more later?
Yeah, so next week, the first part of class, I'll go through all of the basics on how to install that Hebrew keyboard on a Mac and a PC. And, there's likewise versions on Apple and Android devices as well. But yeah, we'll go through all the keyboard next week. So for now, you're going to be doing the worksheets just with a pen and paper kind of a thing, and writing these out and getting practice that way. I'm
Okay,
just showing the keyboard here so that you don't have to see my hands. But yeah, a great question. Gotta toggle back. So for number 3, we're gonna do a tav, right? Because we have a T sound. And now we're introducing a vowel with number 4 for ta. So we're going to do a T, and we can either do the kamatz or the patah. So let's do a kamatz on this one. For number 5, we're going to do a bet just by itself. And for number 6, since it has a vowel sound after it, we're going to do a bet with a patah underneath. So for number 7, how would we write that one? It has a sh sound at the beginning, so we're going to start off with a sheen, and then there's a vowel, so we're going to put a patah underneath it, and then end it with that sh sound. So here we have the sound. I just call them words, even though they're not words, but shosh. For number 8, very similar. We're going to do a sheen with a ah and a tav for shot. For the next one, a sheen with a patah. Well, let's do a kamatz on that one. And a tav with a patah. So shata. So for example, on that one, you could pronounce it for now, shata or shata. We're just working on combinations of consonants and vowels at this point. We'll worry about the stresses later on.
How come in the English version on the worksheet, some of them have dashes?
So just to kind of delineate syllables, basically, is where I put those in.
Okay.
Yeah, so that you would know kind of better where to associate the vowel with the consonant. So that in number 9, for example, that first A goes with the sheen and not in some kind of weird way with the tav later on. But yeah, so let's skip down to one of the more harder ones. So let me. Okay, number 31, or let's go 30 actually. So 30, we're going to start with the sheen, and it has a vowel, ah. Then we got a tav. Let's put a kamatz under that one. And here we have another sheen with another ah sound. So that one, sha ta sha. So again, this is all about practicing combinations and pronunciation of these basic letters. Don't worry about the stresses on the syllables quite yet. So exercise 1 is all about going from English to Hebrew. And exercise 2 is just the reverse, going from Hebrew over to English. And so it says here, I believe, yeah. So exercises 1 and 2 are answer keys to each other. So if you get stumped on one of them, just scroll up. So like, oh, I don't know what that one is for 18. You can scroll up and that's what the answer would be. So exercise 1 and 2 are just mirrors of each other. So for example, let's do 31, switch back to English. So for 31, we start off with a sheen. So we're gonna start with a sh, and then it has a patah underneath it. So we're gonna put an A. And then we've got a tav with another vowel, shata. And then it ends with a T with no vowel after it. So 31 would be shatat or shatat, however you want to pronounce that with your stresses. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. Any questions on the worksheet or how you would do that? For now, just use a writing instrument, whether you got a calligraphy pen or a ballpoint pen, whatever works. But I find it handy to actually print these out and write them just side by side. But you know, everything's optional. Whatever you want to do, whatever works best in your realm.
Good practice is to write it all out.
Yeah. And so there's also a worksheet that I created that kind of goes through, you know, like a elementary level of practicing writing the actual letters. This works with both ballpoint and with calligraphy, and just practice writing. When you get to the homework with the flashcards and you need a place to write those things down, you can write those on these blank lines down here if you'd like. How did I zoom out? I've got the slides for my quiz here, but I'm also each week after we get done with our discussion, I will record the quiz so that it's just like a YouTube video and that you can watch it and quiz yourself. So I'll give one of the examples from the worksheet and give you, you know, a good 5-6 seconds to answer it and sound it out. And then I'll give you the answer and kind of do kind of a YouTube quiz kind of thing that you can work through. But here's a slide that at the beginning of next class, as a group, we'll just go through the quiz slides and then bring up any homework questions that people have and just really work through this and make sure that we've all got it down pat and are good to go. So anyway, any questions or comments or concerns at this point. I know sometimes learning a language can be a little daunting, but hopefully we've paced these 7 introductory weeks at a good pace so that we can get introduced to it and everything without being too overwhelming. But for those of you that have learned another language, this might be a little bit slow. And so whatever works for you. If you just want to watch these after and not necessarily participate with us in class, but anyway, yeah, just opening it up for questions and comments and things.
This is easier than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. It's really not too bad. Once we start getting into transcribing and transliterating things, it's going to kick it up a little bit of a notch, but you are going to love the video course that we've got working on. I'm working with the Case family on getting those. And anyway, the Aleph with Beth work group is just amazing. I love it. I've been me and my mom have been doing it for a while now, and it's awesome. But yeah, any other general questions or comments? So just a little bit about me, because some people wanted to know in the last one. Sometimes I forget that I don't know everyone, or I guess everyone doesn't know me. But in 2020, this is kind of like the beginnings of why Learning Zion, like why is that my thing. So 2020, I just really felt compelled to get out and start talking with people again and everything. We live in a really small town, 180 some odd people at any given point, right? But I don't know, just the basics of Sunday school and things. So I was really prompted to start teaching, or rather having group discussions on past Education Week classes that I've taken. And so I just got a group of people together and we started studying in my garage every week. And then my divorce happened, and I was just kind of floundering, wondering what to do with myself. And so President Nelson had just come out with his Let God Prevail talk, and I was reading the Abraham book that we did in our book club, and I just really wanted to discuss it with other people. And so I hopped on one of the Facebook groups and I was like, hey, does anybody want to read a book with me? It was such a weird, so out of character for me. But anyway, so we did that. We started a book club meeting on Zoom, and it morphed into great friendships that were formed. Next, I was like, I don't know, does anybody want to still be my friend after this book, and let's do another book maybe. And so we put it up for a vote, and we went to Isaiah Decoded next. I had never studied Isaiah before in my life, and so I did that. And then from that, many people introduced me to the Isaiah Institute and things, and I don't know, the rest is history. I've got my hands in all sorts of projects now. It's the fault of all the people in the book club. They got me going all the time. But anyway, so after that, we created Learning Zion as a place to, it kind of came about at the time that many people were like, we need to get off Facebook, it's censored and all this kind of stuff. And so I created a social platform so that we could get off Facebook if we wanted to or needed to. And so anyway, Learning Zion has a social element built into it, but it's kind of dormant for now. But it houses all of our sessions of all of our book clubs, all of our discussions, all of our wild tangents and rabbit holes that we go down. But it also is starting to evolve. Our Cosmism podcast is started on there with Wendy. I seen her somewhere tonight, didn't I? And Spiritual Gifts podcast, worksheets and workbooks that are coming soon. Lots of different. Oh, there's Wendy. Hi. So many different fun things. It's going to take on a whole new life this year. I think it's already kind of stressing me out. But anyway, that's kind of Learning Zion in a nutshell. But if you ever have any questions or comments or anything, welcome. We're kind of a big family. We've got lots of different people with different times and schedules and different things. And so we try to find something for everyone. Currently, we are doing a topical guide study on Jesus Christ on Sundays. We're doing this on Thursdays, and with the Isaiah Institute, if anyone's interested, they're just getting ready to start a new round of that. And me and my mom are moderators for one on Saturday mornings. We are going to be studying 3 of Abraham's things. We're going to start off with Modern Idolatry book. It's just a short little tiny book. The Becoming Kings and Queens of the Gentiles. And then we're going to head into his series on dreams, visions, and near-death experiences as compared to the prophecy of Isaiah. And that's a 24-part series that we'll do. But anyway, that's Saturday mornings. If you're interested, I can hook you up with that information. That one is completely different than what we're doing here. That one's with the Institute, and I don't want to look like I'm trying to harvest people away from the Isaiah Institute to join my stuff. So that one's far and away separate, but it has familiar faces on it. If you're interested in joining that, I can hook you up. But
That's this Saturday.
so this Saturday we are meeting, but it's just going to be kind of like getting back into the swing of things. Next Saturday is when we're actually starting the Modern Idolatry book.
Okay. Yeah. Can
we've
you
been
link
off-
that?
Mhm.
Can you link that either in the Facebook or both the Learning Zion?
Uh-huh.
I don't know where you want to put it under, I guess, the Isaiah Institute if you're doing it on Learning Zion.
Uh-huh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll probably post it on that
Someplace.
Facebook one there. Yeah.
What
Yeah.
time are the Saturday ones, Cameron?
The Saturday one is at 9 a.m. and they're all recorded. If you sign up for any of the book clubs, you can go in and watch them after the fact as well.
Okay, great. Because I did, but I lost my login, whatever, because you had to create an account, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't write it down, so I'm gonna have to create another one. I just can't remember it. So yeah,
Yep.
okay. Yeah, because I'd like to join those because I have 1 or 2 of those little books. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, and so again, if you sign up for our Hebrew Facebook group, introduce yourselves. We can all kind of get to know each other on there and things. We probably don't have a whole lot of time to be introducing everybody every week and everything, but let's see. So what's a good book on cosmism? So Wendy and I are doing that. It's kind of like a book club. It's just her and I, but we're introducing that. But we are starting off with Anthony Larson's trilogy. So the first book is called And the Moon Shall Turn to Blood. That's the first in his trilogy that really introduces the paradigm shift and how to kind of jump in and start studying Velikovsky and Talbot and Thornhill and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's where I would begin. That's where we're starting off and everything. But yeah, we record those once a week, and those are all available there on Learning Zion if you'd like to listen to those.
So I've been kind of going along Twitter with Leland Tanner.
Mhm.
I'm a little bit behind, but
Me
I
too.
do. Well, actually, I listened to his podcast. I think that's where it was. And he said that he has some disagreement with Anthony Larson. Have you heard what the disagreements are yet? I haven't heard.
To some degree, I mean, here and there they kind of pop up and stuff that I've read from Leland's, but yeah, like as I'm going through Anthony Larson's classes and things, there's some things I'm like, either I don't get it or it might be a little off or who knows. But I mean, isn't that the thing with anybody, right? Like it's just all about kind of finding the nuances to any new paradigm shift and kind of navigating those. Yeah, and Jason remembers Anthony Larson's material being read by my dad when I was a kid, 52 now. Like, I wish I had that much time. I'm just a newbie. I went to a neighbor's house about a year ago, and he threw Cosmism at me all in one punch, and I was like, what? I just swept it under the rug for a good year, and now I'm back on it because, oh man, it's been an interesting ride. I realized that there's a lot to that paradigm that can really enrich symbolism.
Excuse me, that I just keep, that's one of those things that just keeps whipping past and but it's increasing. you're
Mhm.
hearing more and more about cosmism. And I was reading in one of Abraham Gileadi's books, The Literary Message, I think, and
Mhm.
there are some specific events that really relate. And if you're and that referred you back to Abraham, the book of Abraham,
Mhm.
Moses, and then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, these things mean different things.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating.
Yeah, kind of like when we were talking in our Hebrew here, that kind of my opinion that punctuation is meant to be experimented with and played with, right? Like, I think most things are valid to look at the gospel from lots of different perspectives and lenses, and just with the Hebrew way of thinking. We'll introduce this a little bit later on. I've got like a hair in my eye, sorry. um, that Hebrew, kind of like the rabbinical tradition and stuff, they have 4 different layers to any given thing. They have it's called the Pardes principle, right? You have the Peshat and the Remez and the Daresh and the Sod, the mysteries. And so I think that cosmism is just really been eye-opening to look at the gospel from a whole new perspective. Like those 6 men of Indostan, one's grabbing the trunk, one's grabbing the legs, one's grabbing the tusks, and they're all experiencing their reality. But as we take a shift and take another position and feel a different part of the gospel and experience it in a whole new way, I think that there's just so much richness that we can all gain from each other in all of our perspectives, kind of a thing. Sunday school has its perspective, its function, and as we go around looking at things from lots of different angles, it really just adds a huge richness to things.
It's not the same one, is it?
Yeah, and what Jason posts there, the symbolism of looking at the different faiths and backgrounds, and even with a cosmism lens and things is very interesting, isn't it?
So can we tell everybody, Leland's going to be there on Saturday with us. He's our guest speaker.
And he just put out a video just now.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a hard time keeping up with his because his are like 3 hours. Me and Wendy tried to keep ours a little bit shorter so that it's not too overwhelming for a homework schedule. But yeah, Leland Tanner is a great one for cosmism and everything. He's starting a new series kind of alongside it. Almost started about the same time we did. But yeah, that'll be fun. We're recording that one Saturday.
That's awesome. Hugh Nibley has really, the Lord's been trying to bring it to our attention through Hugh Nibley for a long time.
Yeah.
And we're now getting eyes to see.
And isn't it interesting how so many of these things really tie back to Hebrew, right? Like, I don't know, many of us in all of our different studies and books that we're reading and stuff, we all kind of at some point go, we really need to learn Hebrew. Like, we need to get up on all of the nuance to this ancient language and how it applies to different things. And so that's, just kind of where all of this was brought about, so that we
The
could.
most literate society in the history of the world.
Yeah.
It right down to using the yod to point at, and it's just been fascinating, the things that I've studied. My doctorate's in reading, so we of course studied that the aspect of why is this society the most literate in the history of the world. Has 99% of all the Nobel Prizes have gone to members of this society. Why? What's going on? May have something to do with the source. I don't know.
Yeah. It's so interesting. I love it. So yeah, thanks all for joining me on this journey and stuff. Like, I'm just new to Hebrew. I've been studying it for what now, like 5 months or so. But I'm very new to this. That's why it's more of a study group than a lecture. I'm doing a fair bit of lecturing during these first 7 weeks on the alphabet, and then it's gonna be more of a self-paced type of a thing. We learn as a group together. If we ever need to slow down, we'll start slowing down our pace. If we need to speed up, we can definitely do that as well. But
And will you sing for us the alphabet?
that's coming next week. I've got my video. If anybody wants it, I'll put that in the notes for this week. But I've got the alphabet song. There is a YouTube video that people can watch. I put it up like a few months ago as I was learning it or whatever, but I didn't realize that I marked it public. People started commenting on it. I'm like, oh no, this is so embarrassing. It was meant to just be for this kind of a group, but whatever.
Come on, you sang it for the first group.
Oh, I mean, like I did like the first couple letters is all, but yeah, I don't even know what the name of the tune is. If somebody can name this tune, I would really love to like know what to title that. But anyway, Aleph Bet Vet Gimel Dalet He Vav Zayin Het Tet Yod Haf Kaf. Anyway, it goes on for the rest of the alphabet, but I cannot name that tune. I know that I've heard it back in my primary.
Is it Alouette? Janta Alouette. Alouette.
Oh, it might be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
French Hebrew.
French Hebrew.
There you go.
I love it. Okay.
Ashkenazi.
I'm so glad because that was bugging me for the longest time. I'm trying to Google it, and like all those little tools and search engines that you can like hum into and it'll tell you what the name of the tune is, to no avail. But okay, with that, yeah. Yep. French Hebrew. All right. Well, anything else before we close out for the night on our first leg of the journey?
When you're talking about Saturday, you're talking about at the Isaiah time, but just we're not starting Isaiah, right?
Yeah, so this Saturday we are just getting together, talking, kind of, because we've been on break for like 2.5 months or whatever, so we're just kind of doing that. The Institute, like I tried to just start this week, but they were like, no, hold off because we're trying to add people to the group. So we're going to hold off one more week before we actually start the reading. But yeah, so this week it's optional. Just come if you want to catch up with all of our fun people across the pond and stuff. That group is so fun because that time lends itself to, UK, Australia, we have Africa in there. But anyway, yeah, if you just want to catch up with all those people.
And will you be recording it? Because I'll be there this week, but next week I'll be in Nashville at a conference. So then can I watch it after the fact?
Yeah, so all of the Isaiah Institute ones, you watch them like as you log into the back end, and you can watch any of the recordings any week.
In Isaiah or in Learning Zion?
In Isaiah. Yeah, it'll be totally separate.
I thought you were doing a Cosmism video or something, or did I misinterpret that?
Yes, so me and Wendy record our Cosmism podcast on Saturdays, and
okay.
Sometimes it's available that Saturday, sometimes it's not, depends on how much work I got, but those are all on the homepage of Learning Zion. You just scroll down and there's a Cosmism podcast there.
Okay, and you said the other guy, the guy that's on Twitter, he had a new video. Where do you find that?
Yeah, so you can find it. He bases it on a platform called Substack, but you can also find a YouTube version of it. Let me pull that up really quick.
Because I tried to get on the Twitter feed and I couldn't. I lost my
I
for
find
that because I
Twitter
don't.
so frustrating.
Yeah, and I don't ever go on, so I couldn't see any of his stuff.
Yeah, so here is a link to Leland's YouTube channel. And so it's like,
thank you.
Eternal Perspectives is the new course that he's doing. And so I think there's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 episodes so far.
Is he LDS?
Yeah, and he's a young guy.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize he was. Okay.
Yeah.
To return to the state.
Is that me listening to the, sorry.
To go back where we came.
What's Leland's last name?
Tanner.
Okay, so he's at Leland Tanner on Twitter.
Probably. He has kind of that creepy photo.
Yes.
What
Yeah.
is the Wendy, what is it? The
I'm-
eternal
You
something.
talking about the Twitter account? It's just Leland
No.
Tanner
The other one
And-
where his
on Substack.
Eternal Perspectives.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Eternal Perspectives. So he's an artist. So he makes his own graphs or graphics, and he also does music. And so he loves to rap, but his music, like I don't love rap, but when I listen to it, I feel the spirit because he's talking about cosmism. So anyway, I don't listen to it very often, but I think his lyrics are amazing, and the music does not offend me. So there you go.
Yeah. So I
But
put
then-
links to all of those.
What's interesting is I actually ran across him on Twitter in the last 2 days,
Oh, really? It's
Yeah.
interesting.
and I didn't
that
know who
happens.
he was. So, but when I saw it, I was like, I've seen some of his other tweets in the last 2 days. What the heck?
Hmm.
So Cameron, back to the Isaiah Institute thing.
Uh-huh.
If you want to sign up for that book club, where do you go?
Just a second. Let me get the link and copy it and paste it. Just turn on.
Is it from the Isaiah Institute website?
Yes, but it's not on any of the menus, which is so weird. I don't know why they don't put it on there. But
My fine husband or my husband.
I love those random things that pop up. Let's see. Enrollment. Okay, here's a link to it. Sorry, it took me a second to find it. So it's isaiahinstitute.com /book discussions sign up with hyphens in there. But anyway, you'll go there, and if you want to be in, like you say which moderators you want to join their classes or whatever. So if you want to be in my mom and I's, Cameron and Darlene Briggs, or you can choose any of them, or if you don't have a preference, if you just have a preference on the book, anyway, it'll all be on that sign up sheet there.
All right, now I gotta enter it on a different device than the one I'm watching you on. So
Yeah. But yeah. Sounds good. Any other comments or questions and things?
So I find it incredibly helpful to have 2 screens because I was able to put the handbook up and still watch you because
Oh yeah.
you understand. So that was an excellent class. Thank you, Cameron.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Good
Yeah.
night.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, it says enrollment's closed, Cameron.
Do you know about that, Dave?
Yeah, just send an email to,
Turtle. I thought they were opening it back up for everyone because they were doing it just for the people that were previously signed up, and then but
yeah, I thought you still had to send an email though to
Rachel.
Michelle.
Oh, yeah. So Rachel Faulkner
Rachel,
or
that's it, Faulkner,
Bill
yeah,
Faulkner. But yeah,
It's just Rachel at IsaiahInstitute.com.
yeah.
I believe so. Yeah.
So just tell her, just say I want to join Cameron's book club.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Rachel. I'm pasting it here.
I am so out of the loop on Isaiah Institute ever since they changed who was in charge of the volunteer positions. Because I used to be
Oh,
the
yeah.
secretary for the volunteer team.
Uh-huh.
But then Debbie Rollo, I think she stepped down to go do something with Trek or something. And the new person didn't need a secretary. So,
Yeah.
I'm just out.
Change of guard.
the loop. I'm out of the loop.
But yeah, they're just starting that new round.
Okay, so I just need to email and ask, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I'll do. 9 o'clock in the morning, you're gonna kill me. You are gonna kill me.
It's killing us, but it's one of the only times that we can make the other half of the world be able to join in with us. It's been fun
Oh,
though.
it didn't keep it. I copied it and it didn't keep it. Helps if I remember how to spell Isaiah.
That was the hardest thing for me when we started studying Isaiah. I would always misspell it or mistype it anyway. Get sent off as something weird.
Okay. So, yeah, I had some calligraphy pens. Look,
Yeah, you're already practicing. Love it.
well, I had to figure out how to get the ink cartridge into my pen. I had to pick which nib. I have like 7 different nibs that came with this set. So
I love it. Yeah, bring those next time, and we'll talk about those ones as well. I'll experiment with mine, and we'll.
yeah, I have Amazon sent me these to review.
Yeah.
So it's got like 36 different cartridges and a bunch of pens. So so anyway, I got lucky that I had it. Of course, you know, I had to know by now it's not luck. Nothing is luck.
Yep.
The things that I get and the things that I have an opportunity for, it's not luck. It just comes.
It's amazing the way the Lord works that way, huh?
It
When things
is.
start happening in 2s or 3s, or bashing you over the head, like, learn this already.
Yeah. Are you still recording?
Oh, probably. Sorry. Yeah. Let me